Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to tonight's presentation of the Northwest Racing Cup Series. As always, I am your host here in the booth, Charles Wooten, and alongside me will be Justin Prince. Justin, welcome to the booth for the second week here of the Northwest Racing Cup Series, as we're going to gamble a little bit here in Las Vegas.
Absolutely, it's the Snake Eyes 100, and many drivers are hoping they don't roll a Snake Eyes for tonight's action. It's a difficult circuit here at Las Vegas. Yes, mile-and-a-half circuit for the first time this season. Yes, chance of seeing a lot of full-throttle racing. However, when it comes to a track such as this, things such as tire management come into importance. Track position, even the lines you run on quarter entry are going to be what separates the best from the drivers who drop throughout the field tonight.
And we've got roughly around 34 to 36 drivers all bidding for one position. And like you said, that's going to be the best. Someone who's going to finish in first, going to be celebrating here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. 60 laps worth of fuel, 60 laps on the tires. So right there at the same point for tires and fuel. We talked to these drivers a little bit earlier today. And as you mentioned too, somewhere in the 45 to 50 lap range is when we're going to see them come in. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes in a little bit short and who comes in around that 50 mark.
Yeah, I expect the majority of the field to go lap 50, but there's the chance, depending on how the racing goes tonight, that drivers try and go for a short pit at that lap 45 mark to get away from their competitors and get some clean air. But one thing to think about too tonight here is if you get inside somebody's draft, that you have to deal with aero push. The amount of aero push with this cup package is substantial in the pack, as much as 20 to 30% tire wear differential between in the draft and being in clean air.
And we saw a little bit earlier here, talking about getting around this track. Well, there's another key component, getting on it to pit road. You mentioned it earlier. I was unaware of it myself. Some of these drivers may not be aware of it, that there is a bump coming into pit road, so you have to be careful. And if you're coming down 2 or 3 cars at a time, it could very well happen. We see someone go into the grass or into that inside pit wall, and that could really ruin their night here.
Yeah, specifically in the middle portion of the pit entry alongside the banking. If you try and dive in a little bit later or end up missing part of the pit lane or have to go for late pit entry, if you hit that bump, it can swing you hard to the right and potentially cause you to either spin up the track or spin along the Pennzoil logo. For many of these drivers, they might need to take a conservative to think about that. Don't be surprised as well to see many of these competitors try and go for every single inch on the pit entry, because it can be the difference between 1 to 2 seconds depending on how aggressive you are on the pit entry.
And, I just want to bring up here, we're going to pull these up on to the screen real fast, and we're also going to send a copy your way so we make sure you have them as well. And that is your point standings coming into tonight's race. This is going to be a very crucial race. We've already got Corey Walters going to be locked in as long as he completes the 15 races he needs. But look at second, third, fourth. These guys are separated by 2 points, 4 points, 5 points, 6, 1 point going down there. This is going to be a really, really close battle. So we very well could see a new points leader coming out of tonight's race. Brett Johnson right there, 43 points. John Ottenbacher, 41 points. And both of them had good races at Daytona. So, again, points leadership up for battle here tonight.
Don't forget, though, in this type of racing, the real season starts at Las Vegas. The reason being, superspeedway racing is an equalizer for a lot of drivers you don't usually see up towards the front, especially with fixed setups. With a track such as Las Vegas, it separates the good from better from the best to see who's going to be potentially the favorites, especially when we go to these types of racetracks where you have that big spoiler and have a whole heck of a lot of downforce and 550 horsepower.
And it looks like we're about to see soon who's going to be on a pole, as we do have Brad Carpenter coming out on to the track so far. going to be one of the first drivers to come out as we'll bring the sidebar up onto the screen. But not sure if the drivers meeting quite over yet here. Is that what we were waiting on? He is the only driver out on track, so we'll see if he does go ahead and complete some laps here. But again, qualifying, like we mentioned at Daytona, crucial if you want to get up there and get that #1 pit stall.
Yeah, especially because it can be a difference in terms of track position. It's not as simple as that being at Daytona, where you have an advantage of having a far back pit stall. You want at this type of a racetrack, in my opinion, to have a stall towards the front of the pit lane to be able to get yourself as best of a time as possible in qualifying and be able to quickly get in and out on your pit stop, especially if you get green flag pit stops. But the interesting thing with qualifying here too with this package is usually you're faster the second time around. I'm surprised Carpenter's not going to take in a second lap here. He's pulling off the track.
He is indeed. Obviously has pole, but he's the only driver out with a 31.895. We saw practice times in the 29, so obviously even in the 30s, that time not going to stand on pole, and he is going ahead and retiring it. So not sure why. Your guess is as good as mine why he wouldn't go ahead and take a second lap. But it is a strange one there. But nobody else still coming out, so it may be that driver's meeting not over, and he came out and ran a lap beforehand.
I think potentially, yeah, and also just didn't get a good lap in general in the first place in clean air. Usually you're expecting times around even a 30-second mark in clean air with the fixed setup here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But one of the main discussion points in this drivers' meeting here for tonight is going to be giving each other space, because early on in this race tonight here, Charles, we'll be seeing a lot of side-by-side racing potentially, because it's hard to get away with this package. As the tire wear kicks in about 15-20 laps in, it'll separate to smaller packs. By about lap 30, that's where the tire wear differential comes in a little bit, and you'll see a lot of the drivers spread out. You want to get yourself to that point where you spread yourself out as a field and give respect to your competitors. By the way, track is open for qualifying.
Oh, it's track open for qualifying. We got a couple of drivers out. We'll go over two as we'll pull them up. Going to be the 9 of Corey Walters, who's getting ready, and he's actually not coming out. So we'll jump over to Nick Bellamy out on the track in the number 22 machine. Again, it'll be interesting to see who is on pole. Again, we heard from Jeff Stabnell earlier, defending champion. He couldn't quite hit the 29s. He did finally hit one, but as you saw, that was in a bit of a draft. He was behind somebody, so not sure if he's going to be able to hit those here in qualifying. But you definitely want to be up front. And right now, it's still Brad Carpenter, but I think he's going to drop like a rock with that time.
Yeah, not a good time as mentioned here, but many of these drivers going to have to make sure they don't make mistakes. Drivers like Tidrick already getting loose on their first qualifying laps. That's going to hurt his entire run, for example. Others like Ricky Bowser not using the full length of the track. Expect many of these competitors to actually cut the apron rather, to be able to cut a little extra time, especially for the second time around.
Yeah, they will cut it just a little bit. And that 83 of Chris White in his Amsoil machine, again, sponsored by Amsoil. I believe he's a dealer with Interstate Synthetics. So we'll see if he can get that number 83 machine to the pole and keep it there. That's going to be the key, as he's there now. But Stephen O'Hare right there with him, and Chad Malick's going to top him with a 29.883 by .045. So not much, but still enough to take pole.
Yeah, and those are around the times that should be expected in clean air potentially tonight for a lot of these drivers. So these are going to be very tight qualifying times, though, from the best of the best, because it's so close and so important to be able to keep momentum around this track and be able to ride along the bottom line. If you paint that white line, you're able to get some time. The risk is, though, of scrubbing speed by turning too much. Some of these drivers need to be able to know that they can go all the way down without clipping the apron to be able to move quickly up the board. The 6 As amongst some of the drivers shuffling along, Chris White still up on top, though, in front of Corey Walters.
And it's been shuffling around a little bit. He had it, then he lost it, and he got it back. And we're jumping over to the 24. Jeff Stabnow here, a 30.132 as he's coming to complete, I believe, his second lap here. So we'll see what kind of time he puts in. A 29.846. So he does get into the 29s, and he's going to be sitting, as of right now, on inside row 2. So not a bad start there for that 24 machine if that time stays.
That's the big if, and want to take a look, if we can, at drivers such as the 46 machine of Sean Britzman. Many competitors on the first lap prefer, some cases, going to the white line. Other competitors, such as we've seen from Stabnow, prefer the higher line, riding the middle line, try and prevent themselves from scrubbing speed, then go to the bottom on the second lap. So it's kind of preference in how you build up your speed for qualifying to be able to get the best run off the corner and be able to have the best possible time, because the second lap around is the one you really want to show your true pace.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you do it, but you said the second lap, want it to be fast, and you want to be able to set yourself up good. 29.949 for Sean Britzman on the first lap. He's still got one more time around this. We'll see if he can get up there and give a run for the money. And while he's doing that, I want to point out that the 55 of Dan West Jr., as we've deemed Rocket Man Dan, up in the outside row 1. So good time for him. Not quite pole, but a very good time for that 55 machine, as Sean Britzman's going to go to 13th with a 29.884.
Yeah, him and William Fletcher with some impressive times in the 29.7s, and those are really solid lap times. Some competitors were only reaching that mark in the draft, in the practice session in preparation for tonight's race. So some impressive times from some of these competitors. The thing is, though, it's going to be difficult potentially to keep that same pace for a full fuel run without cooking the tires.
And if you cook those tires, it could spell disaster for yourself. And depending on how bunched up this field does stay, and with 34 to 36 drivers, there's a good chance that even when we start to separate this field a little bit, you're going to be around somebody. And you can spin the car by yourself and maybe be okay. You spin the car of 2 or 3 other cars around you, the odds of everybody surviving that without hitting you go up drastically.
Exactly, and the biggest danger zone on this track, in my opinion, is the exit of Turn 2 here at Las Vegas. The reason being, that's where you have the different lines convening from the drivers trying to run along the white line to some who are trying to maybe run the middle to high line and end up making contact. That's also where, if you end up, say, burning your right front tire in the first 25, 30 laps, you potentially could smack the wall if you don't burp the throttle or don't anticipate the potential contact. And that's where many of the drivers too had collisions, getting into the wall in turn 2, collecting others down the back straightaway. So that may be Calamity Corner today.
Yeah, it very well could be. And I just want to keep a update here. Scott Mann just ran to the top of the charts. He's a driver last season. Obviously, you weren't here with us last season, but he opted to not qualify sometimes and start to the back. He liked to drive his way through this field. I obviously can't see it. Keep an eye on radio control or race control there. He may opt for an EOL. Probably not with this big of a field, but he has been known to do it in the past. Meanwhile, I also want to report to Brad Carpenter, who was out on the track with that 31.895, 29th place. So he's got his work cut out for him now.
Yeah, and I think Carpenter just realized that because he completed the first lap, he can't redo that said lap or even take the second one. So already back off the racetrack for him at this point, but most of the field putting in qualifying times as to be expected because, in my opinion, with this type of racing, it can be difficult to pass. And you want to be in clean space. Track position is key. It's a major gamble, I think, to go to the back.
I definitely agree. Track position is going to be king. And right now, the king of that track position is Scott Mann William Fletcher, this is one of the first times I've actually seen him up as high as he is in qualifying. So I look to see good things from him, as well as, of course, Dan West Jr. is Josh Robinson in 27th now with that 30.146. Another little bit slower time, but we'll see if he can get that going later.
And you won't believe this, the pole sitter, Scott Mann, already appearing wants to start at the end of the field here. Don't know about that decision, but we'll have to see how that works out for the 90.
Yeah, and we were afraid of this. He loves getting those EOLs. Again, I start at the back when I race. I don't want to be back there. So it's an interesting call to start at the back. Maybe he knows something we don't know. But again, I think it's a very crazy call in my opinion.
Yeah, because again, we talked about this at Daytona here, Charles, where there's the different preferences of do you want to be behind a wreck or do you want to be in front of it? Again, I'm the type of driver who wants to be at the front of the field if I've got the track position and be a front and potential incidents in the craziness, especially in the middle of the pack. Being behind it, you risk getting into it, but you also are able to slow down more. So, gonna be curious to see how Scott Mann cuts his way through the field.
Yeah, we'll be watching him and see how he does progress. Of course, that is going to do it for qualifying. We'll see. What was your pole sitter? Not your pole sitter anymore. So, of course, it will show him as the pole sitter for the grid, but he is receiving the EOL. So we'll see how it all plays out for him later on in the night. You want to run through those first, I'd say 6 rows here for us, and then we'll finish this off and get this race going.
Yes, indeed. As mentioned, Mann on the top of the pylon, qualified Fletcher second, Dad West Jr. in third, Brett Johnson in the 4th position. In row number 3, it's Chris White in the 83 machine. He'll move up 1 row, though, because of Scott Mann's EOL. Corey Walters, qualified 6th. Jeff Stabnow in decent starting position with the 2:29, 8, 4, 5, and 7. Rounding out the top 8, it's Stephen Paulison. Bill Ross Jr. in 9th. Ryan Maines in 10th. Rounding up those first 6 rows, Stephen O'Hare and Seth Frazier.
In row 7, going to be 6 of Chad Malik, and the 42 of Ricky Bozer. I believe that is a correct pronunciation. Row 8, going to be the 46 of Sean Breitzman and the 40 of Bruce Lee Weaver. Row 9, going to be the 10 of Justin McClure and the 187 of Kenneth Garber. Row 10 is going to be the 22 of Nick Bellamy and the 11 of Frank Harris. Row 11 going to be the 06 of Joshua Bill and the 89 of John Ottenbacher. Row 12 going to be the 51 of Roy Grande and the 45 of Daryl Tidrick. Row 13 going to be the 92 of Casey Tillman and the 8 of Gary Nichols. Row 14 deep in the field is going to be the 53 of Carl Burke and the 47 of Josh Robinson. Row 15 is going to be the 03 of Daniel Masters and the 166 of Eric Cheney. Row 16 is going to be the 31 of Brad Carpenter, who did not have the run he wanted and then realized he couldn't go back out again. And then the 72 of BJ Tidrick next to him. Row 17, the 26 of Ray Fournier and the 91 of Scott Hutchinson. Row 18 is going to be the 79 of Stephen Bartlett and the 78 of Dan Stuzzi. And rounding out the field here tonight on row 19 is going to be the 07 of Dana Rogers. That's going to do it for your lineup as we are already getting ready to take it underway. And we see that 90 of Scott Mann dipping off to take his EOL.
A few others did take them. Eric Cheney, Gary Nichols, Frank Harris, Brad Carpenter also getting EOL. Well, we know the reason for Carpenter going out and qualifying in the middle of the driver's meeting, but he doesn't have to go too far back. That's the bright spot. But it's going to be interesting to see how they race at the start because they are being told that the green flag starts the race, and one of the main things is it's difficult to get away. That means one thing, you're going to have to play potential defense down the back straightaway to preserve that bottom line, especially with them going to be fighting side by side all the way in towards the start and finish line and the first lap.
It is indeed, and we'll see how this first lap goes. Hopefully, nobody spins the tires here. They're going to obviously swerve back and forth here a little bit, get some heat in those tires, so they can potentially not spin them. As the pace car going to dive off this time, as it is over a mile, so the pace car only has to go around one at a time. And they're going to get a slow start here to the green flag, and the green flag is out, and we're racing for the first time 100 laps on the books as we are underway for lap number 1, and it's going to be Dan West Jr. on point, leading them into turn number 1.
Very clean start for the drivers already, but take a look at that strong run by White. Does have that draft, but many drivers have different preferences. Some like to block all the way to the white line or go to the middle. Others like to go straight to the wall. White went straight to the wall. He's already paying the price for it because Stabno wants that spot, but he's loose.
And you don't want to get too loose. So we got one going in the grass, the number 10 into the infield as we can get to him. He has fallen back. That was the number 10, I do believe, that went into the pits.
Yeah, Robinson spun around. Bellman did a whole 360 in the grass. And that's what you call cold tires at this track on corner exit turn 4. That's where a lot of drivers were getting squirrely in practice. And they have already lost themselves the draft because of all that squirreliness.
And they're starting to fan out a little bit here at the front. Dan West Jr., then Chris White, followed by William Fletcher. And it looks like Jeff Stabnow is going to fall back several spots. I don't see any damage. But the front three kind of spread out, and then you have a big, huge chunk of cars right here from about, I would say, 6th place on to about 12th place. They're still getting going here, and they're not done.
Yeah, some of these cars are looking like they may be a bit uncomfortable in turn 4 especially. The track is very cool, only 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That is pretty cool when it comes to early year Las Vegas. The thing is, though, it takes a couple laps for the tires to heat up, and these drivers are definitely battling some of these race cars. Already Maine's just clipped the apron.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time. You know, you're out here racing your competitors, but you're racing this track as well. So you really have to race the track first, then race the competitors. If you're wrecking by yourself, you're not going to be competitive against the drivers on track. So you really have two competitors. Well, in this case, you have 35 and they get 36 if you're racing the 35 drivers on track plus the track itself.
And a caution flag.
And it looks like it's going to be a Dana Rogers involved as well as the 89 involved. We'll go back and take a look and see what happened here on lap number 5. An early caution coming out.
This is what you call a bit of brain fade and a bit of expecting the competitor to go up to the wall. Ottenbacher didn't do that. Cheney thought he was and was trying to make the pass and was kind of anticipating for him to just go all the way to the fence. Instead, he gets hooked in. As a result, it collects at least 4 or 5 drivers.
That is unfortunate right there. And the 07, kind of just an innocent bystander, had nowhere to go, but right into the pack. So just again, unfortunate bystander there for the 07 of Dana Rogers. But that does bring out caution number 1. The question is, 5 laps into a run, are they going to come down pit road and take fuel and tires? Again, we predicted about 60 laps, so I think we'll have a mixed bag here.
Yeah, some drivers I think are going to absolutely prioritize track position, and already seen that with many of the front competitors.
A little trickery going on at the front, but unfortunately, about the first 12 drivers not falling for it, as Dan West Jr. tries to trick him out a little bit, and nobody fell for that one.
And we got a car stopped at the entrance of the pit lane. Frank Harris, for whatever reason, stopped down there.
Well, that is interesting as to why he would stop down there. Looks like he's back under power now, but stopping at the end of pit road, not sure. He's not a lap down, so there's no reason it would be a closed pit for him. So maybe a steering wheel or a pedal issue there, possibly.
Well, that actually hurt Ottenbacher because Ottenbacher and all that blew his engine. And remember, there is a faster pair available in the series. Problem is, because he blew the engine before being able to keep on going, because he had to stop for all that, He's going to lose a ton of time on the pit lane now.
Yeah, and you would think it might be the opposite, but special note to note on that, or key note, is that because we're under caution, what may be a 2-minute tow is now going to be a 3-minute tow. So he's going to be in that pit stall even longer than he would have been had that happened under green flag conditions. So he's going to be there and probably an extra minute before he can use that fast repair. And again, that, like you said, that's going to be detrimental to his race. Hopefully he can get back on the lead lap a little later.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of work, though, because he's already losing a lap at the very minimum. Going to be at least a couple before he even gets into the pit service to take the fast repair. But already an interesting start to this race. Was not expecting many of these competitors to go single file and spread out as much as they were. It just looked like everybody fifth on back just wasn't as comfortable as the top four, because there was a 6 miles an hour difference in turn 1 and 2 all the way through the corner compared to the 5th place car in O'Hare and 4th place Ross Jr.
And, I wanted to bring a driver into the light here just a little bit. If we go back to the 15th place here, look at Scott Mann. Received the EOL. He's already up to 15th place.
Yeah, he was able to avoid the spinning cars at the start of the race, and in turn, though, he was very comfortable from the get-go, it seemed like, because he kept the car going full throttle, essentially, as to be expected on the short run, potentially, and was just able to pass by the drivers who were not comfortable or going maybe quarter or half throttle to save their tires, and just blistered on by drivers. That entire run left them sitting around like they were sitting still, especially. So those spinning cars definitely helped him to start off the run. Now he's got okay track position, but still some work to do.
Yeah, he's definitely got some work to do. And we got 93 laps to do it. Probably be about 90 when we take the green here. As, of course, we're under caution here. Brought to you by Interstate Synthetics. Also being on board with the 83 there. It's going to be interesting. This caution coming out this early, does that indicate we're going to have more cautions? Again, the unspoken rule, or the unwritten rule, I should say, cautions breed cautions. I've seen it happen. Then again, I've seen us go caution 1 and then go caution free the rest of the race. So you really never know what's going to happen. If I had to be a betting man, I don't think we're out of the woods of caution. I think we're going to see at least 2 more here tonight.
At the minimum, potentially. So, and that is the potential when it comes to short runs. If you get a long run, though, that's where I think you'll calm down enough to where we might see a substantial run in this race. You just need to make sure you get there. By the way, Ottenbacher only 1 lap down because he just got out of the pit boxes in time before the pace car.
Yeah, John Ottenbacher running a Chevrolet here tonight. Not his normal paint job on there. So it looks like the boys in the shop forgot to put the wrap on that car, as he is running a different paint job on that car. So interesting enough there to see that particular paint job on there. I'm really focused on this restart as the green flag is about to come out for lap number 10, and it is indeed out. And so far, so good. I don't see anyone spinning the tires. They did get a slower start, and that probably helped with that a little bit.
I'm not sure what they're doing. Row 5 on back on the top line. At least 2 car lengths difference in front of the 06 machine. But outside of that, pretty clean start. However, it's going to be the matter of how long can Dan West Jr. hold on. He looked pretty good to start off the race in the clean air. And clean air plays a major difference compared to when you're in this dirty air at this track.
And he would love nothing more than to pick up a win here early in the season. Last season, it took him a little bit more time to pick up the win he needed to try to get into the playoffs. So this could be key for him to start this one off with a lot of momentum from last year.
Casey Tillman spun out.
Oh, back and see the 92 missing the front of that car. Let's go pull up the replay and see what happened.
Well, this is a weird one because I think he tried to come back from the apron onto the racetrack, and here's the main thing with that. If you end up hitting the wrong spot or take it too gentle, you can get stuck on the apron. Ends up bobbling the car back and forth, overcorrecting across the track. and ends up collecting Dana Rogers for his second blown motor of this race. Rogers basically done, not even 12 laps in.
And the 10 car getting involved in that one as well of Justin McClure. He actually went upside down during this thing. Oh, he is going to have a heavy damage, but good news is that car is under its own power for him. So he will make it to pit road. Again, a violent ride for that 10 car and the 07 as well as the 92. And that could put us one car down if that's his second blown engine here tonight.
Not sure what the case at the 10, but was about to actually bring him up because he was flying off that start too, and I don't think he was expecting the car to send him flying around. But an interesting pit call. Chris White is in.
Yeah, that is interesting. Chris White's in, and maybe a handful of other people coming down with him, which I say not so surprised back here as you have some of these drivers coming in further down in. Roy Grande, Frank Harris, Daniel Masters, Brad Carpenter, Dan Suzy. These guys, they're at the back of the field, so I didn't really expect them to stay out. I figured they would come in anyway. And it's just kind of what you do if you're back there. Might as well top off on fuel, get some fresh tires. You really have nothing to lose back there in the back right now.
The main thing is, though, too, you never know when there's going to be a long green flag run, and if you end up having the right gamble, so to speak, when you come into pit, it can absolutely make and break your race. It can actually make you the fastest car on the track. The gamble, though, is White sacrifices a top 4 position. Yes, he was on the top line and potentially may burn an extra percentage or two on the tires. But now he's going to have to fight from 24th position. But as we've seen, if you've got good pace and good comfort, there's a chance you can fly through this field. And we've seen some drivers do that. Scott Mann, for example, he's in 13th after the caution.
Yeah, he's gained a few more spots. And, too, you got to point out, if you're the 83 of Chris White, now back deep in this field, you really have to point out the fact that both of our cautions have come from the back of the field here. Daytona, that one's a little different. Wrecks can happen anywhere at Daytona, the front, the middle, the back. And very well they could happen anywhere here, but so far the trend has been the back of the field, and that's where he's going to be now. So you really have to be cautious about who's around you, what's happening around you, and make sure that chance you took to get fresh tires for a long green flag run doesn't come back to bite you if you're involved in a wreck, here in 5 laps or 10 laps.
Yeah, that's always the scary thing for me when there's these split calls like this and a lot of lead cars or drivers at the front of the field surrounders say elect to stay out, is there is that risk. But you kind of have to balance it out in your head. Think, is this going to be a move that could potentially gain me track position if, say, we get another quick yellow and the rest of the lead cars elect to pit because they've been out there now for 2 to 3 heat cycles? Those are the types of things you have to think about, and you just have to hope you don't end up getting collected. There's going to be some drivers, I think, that might be aggressive on that strategy. I'm kind of the type of driver who likes to be a little bit more conservative to make sure that you don't get collected with the aggressive drivers, so we'll have to see how they go.
Yeah, and looking here, the top 14 drivers have not been down pit road, so, the good news, and I've said this before, the good news for someone like Dan West Jr. in that 55 machine is, you've got older tires. You haven't, you've been on a few heat cycles there. You've got a couple of people, well, in this case, 13 people that are on the same cycle as you. These guys with the newer tires, like Corey Walters back there, these guys have a lot of cars to pass before they get to you. So that's good for him because those tires could get a little bit worn out while they're trying to pass everyone, and it's going to make it a little harder for them to pass him if and when they catch him later on.
Exactly, and as well, he's had clean air for this entire race. I'm surprised there hasn't been anyone who's been able to even battle with him so far throughout this entire run, even with some of the closer starts. So Wes is in a great position here. It's just a matter of, will we get a long green flag run, or if the cautions breed cautions continue, Will he elect to stay out or end up taking his fresh set of Goodyear Eagles?
Yeah, that is the question. And again, the only thing that'll answer that is time and laps, of course. And we're going to be completing some more of those laps as the lights are off on the pace car one more time. We're going to be starting lap 16 here for tonight's race as the pace car dives off. Right now, Dan West Jr. has led 14, make it 15 as he comes to the line every lap of this race. Well, we'll see if he can hang on to it, as it looks like they're already starting to shake it up for second position.
Terrible start for William Fletcher. Didn't get up in the gears very well. And already that bottom line, if you get a good start, you can quickly make a pass like Bill Ross Jr. just did. Already, though, that draft closing everyone back in towards West Jr.
Yeah, I'm really shocked here. Like you mentioned a second ago, single file for the most part. You look first all the way back to about 15th or 20th. These guys are single file, just that quick right off the restart. I expected them to say double file for at least a couple of laps. That not the case here, as everyone's electing to kind of go a little easy and go single file, except for about 4th or 5th place there.
Yeah, this is not the way I expected this race to go at all. This is something to expect after the tires start to settle in and wear down. Not on the short run. But many of these competitors, I think, are thinking, may as well save the tires, don't go over aggressive, unless you're Jeff Stabnow, who won 7th.
Yeah, he is doing his best to jump up there and take 7th place away. He's coming to the inside of that 42 machine of Ricky Moser. We'll see if he can get by him. So far, not happening, but there's no little battle going on behind them, as it looks like BJ Tidrick in the 72 may lose a spot on that outside.
Yeah, these cars are really struggling to get a pass down to the bottom. The reason being, it is so crucial to be able to hold on to the middle line in those types of battles, apex off. The reason being, you're able to play defense by being able to get a better run off the corners, both in turns 2 and 4. That straight line speed difference can make it so difficult to make that pass to the bottom and kill the tires of the bottom car in turn. It makes the tires of the driver who's trying to make the pass wear quicker than the car that's up on the middle and top lines.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how these guys do get around this track and get around each other as still single file. But we have seen these guys here 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They've really started to catch up to Dan West Jr. now as they're getting that little bit of draft. They're kind of freight training together, and it may be just a lap or 2, maybe 3. We might see a battle for the lead here and see a lead change.
I think that's a strong possibility here, and I think West knows that these cars, again, have the slipstream. Only a 9/1000th second difference last time by. With what we've already seen so far, what these cars are dealing with, wouldn't be surprised if someone tries to get it to his right rear quarter panel and take away the top line, because that bottom line just isn't sticking at all in the short run for these cars.
Yeah, it is not working at all. And they're right there with them, like you said, 0.149 seconds separating Dan West Jr. and Bill Ross Jr. And we note in the Daytona race, Bill Ross Jr. was doing really good in there as well. Seth Frazier, we didn't talk about him a whole lot in the Daytona race, but he's holding his own there in 4th place in that 32 machine, and he is a very fierce competitor. He has a good shot at winning, and again, William Fletcher putting on a good show for you as well. One of the highest positions he's been in probably all last season and this season.
Yeah, but you can tell a little bit, though, that Fletcher's starting to struggle a bit in 3 and 4. Got a bit tight in. Oh, boy.
And are we going to save it? Are we not going to save it? And no, caution comes out.
And could see that coming. I think he's seen the door open on the inside. And it's the first big one of the race. The thing is, Frazier ended up not going low enough to make that move work. He tried to basically radar come on the quarter panel, and you don't want to do that, and you can see why.
Yeah, so we're going to go watch the replay here from the blimp cam so we can get a good shot and see exactly how this went down. It's right there's the contact, hits him twice, and the 41 gets involved. Jeff Stabnow gets involved in it as well. with several drivers, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as we go back to live, that may have been the 90 of man that was involved in that as well.
Yep, he got into that one late. Unfortunate for Man, where he would. That's the risk you take, though, in the back part of the field. If drivers collect in front of you or check up too hard or don't check up, you end up risking getting involved in the incident. And that was the case where Man didn't check up. Instead, becomes part of the big junk.
Yep, and right there, you just mentioning, you saw Man's engine sitting there, and you see the dark smoke and then the little white smokes. That is where that engine is sputtering. You can almost hear it going boom, boom. It's sputtering on him. And then you saw the big puff of black smoke come out. That engine has expired. He's running under coasting power right now. It looks like he may be able to make it to his pit stall, though.
Yeah, that's the bright side, at least, to be able to get a service here. But on the bright side, for a lot of competitors, now the fuel cycles are relatively identical. But this opens up the strategy if we get a long green flag run now, because this race can go any direction. You're still not safe to get it to the end of the race. But wouldn't be surprised to see many drivers try and mix it up if we get a longer run. That's the main thing, if.
And it definitely going to be interesting now to see as some of the drivers up front now, Gary Nichols and Joshua Bill, these two haven't been up front here, as I'll check in on some stuff big time. You look at those two, Joshua Bill, 20 spots gained since the start of this race as he leads right now under caution, 24 for Gary Nichols.
Yeah, curious to see what the strategy call may be for those cars, as this would be interesting, and I don't like the idea of staying out of that kind of call. I have to be quite frank. I don't like that idea, especially since the 06 was one of the drivers ran over in the back end by Man in that incident. Yeah, if they had to come down that time by to be able to take tires. So with the 2 to go signal, you get pit roads closed.
Yeah, I think with you, I definitely would have come down and taken the tires and fuel everyone else did. You're on the lead lap. I think you want to stay in cycle with everybody else. Sometimes you want to get off cycle with everyone else if you got a plan. You got damage. You just need to come down and stay with the group. I think that's the best plan. Safety and numbers per se. But we'll see if his strategy works out. I don't think it's going to, though.
I don't think so either, because damage is such a critical part of this package, because more than 10 seconds of damage on your car, you're down straight line speed. More so of a factor if it's on the front than the back, but still, that back end spoiler crumpled up a bit into the air on the left front, left rear rather, in that entire left rear compacted in. I don't know if I like the call if they elect to stay out for the 1 to go signal here, especially if they struggle off the start. I think Gary Nichols, though, would be more okay since it was only a few laps. Not as concerned about him.
Yeah, he has been down a pit road twice. So we'll, again, it's going to be a tough one. Again, I'm with you. I don't think it's a good call to go ahead and stay out. And I believe the lights going off this time. They are. Lights are off, so he's committed to it. So, again, an interesting call. We'll leave it at that. But, again, if this is a mistake here and he ends up getting this car sideways, collecting the 8 beside him, we could see some of your front runners that have had really good runs being taken out potentially due to someone else's mistake. And that's, as a racer, that's not the best way to make friends on a racetrack.
No, and again, we talked about this a bit at Daytona. Race moments such as this, these drivers remember them. And for tracks such as Talladega potentially on the calendar, this is going to be something where if something big happens, they're going to point to this as one of the reasons they may not work with a said driver.
It definitely is. You know, we talk about memory of a driver a little bit here before we get this green again. And racers have a short-term memory, but they also got a long-term memory. You don't hear about it a whole lot. Short-term memory, when you make a mistake or wreck, you try to forget about it and move on. But long-term memory, if somebody else does you dirty, or even if they don't intentionally do you dirty, you remember that. Like you said, going into a super speedway as we take the green flag one more time. So we'll see, but it looks like a okay start, but the 8 didn't get as good in Gary Nichols.
Yeah, in part because he really stacked them up behind the pace car by 5-6 car lengths, and already the 06 has glossed the race lead, and contact in turn 2.
Contact being made, and cars going around. So far, the caution not coming out. The 47 involved in this one of Josh Robinson. They're off the racing surface, so no caution comes out for it. I am really surprised, and there it is, finally.
Oh, there it is. It all started, though, with the 7 car, because remember we talked about the risks and trying to make sure you're not over-aggressive? Brett Johnson said hello to the right front fender of Chris White, and it stacked everybody up off of turn 2.
And those were 2 front runners there. Here you see the contact. Ow, hard hit for that 7 to the outside wall, to the 83 as well. And a caution would fly. Again, the 7 and the 83 were both up front earlier. Not so much now, as that'll bring out the caution for the 4th time. 12 laps under caution, and unlike Daytona, only 2 lead changes. I believe we had somewhere in the 40s at Daytona, so quite different here as far as cautions and lead lap changes.
Yeah, indeed. It's not been a pretty one, but you gotta hope that we get a longer run is the main thing. The exact number was 7 cautions, 28 total laps under the yellow flag, by the way. Yeah, with the 13 lead changes in the 80-lap race. But a lot of drivers having to potentially take their fast repairs already here because of that stack up.
And it's going to be a long night here if these guys keep having these cautions. We've been here roughly an hour and only 30 laps into this race. We still have 71 laps to go. And again, we're very short into this race time, or very long into this race time, almost an hour for 30 laps. They definitely need some green flag laps here if they want to tick these laps off quick.
Yeah, again, I think we're going to get them if they separate themselves out with a long run. The thing is, again, you need to get to the long run. So if you are, what we've seen so far, very aggressive, you're not going to get the long run. So that's got to be the message to many of these drivers at this point. Be considerate of your fellow competitors. Be patient. Don't force moves too aggressively to the bottom side, because it can set yourself up for a good race overall in terms of quality for the entire field. Mind you, too, we're still at least 10 laps out of the fuel window.
Yeah, and I'm sure race control has possibly gone over there. If not, they probably will be here soon, telling guys, calm down. We still have a lot of racing left to go. So we'll see if they haven't, if they do here in the near future. Just to kind of recap your top 10 right now quickly, it is Dan West Jr., Ryan Maines, William Fletcher, Bill Rush Jr., and Stephen O'Hare in your top 5. Carl Burke, Scott Mann up to 7th. Even after all that, he's still in 7th place. Kenneth Garber in 8th, Scott Hutchinson 9th, and Nick Bellamy in the 10th position. So even with some of this shaking up, we still have some of our drivers that were up front in there now, and some of them that were further back up in the front as well, like 9th place Scott Hutchinson, 25 places gained, Carl Burke 21.
Those are some of the things you can do when you are able to avoid incidents. And that has been one of the keys tonight, to say the least. It's the matter, though, of can they keep themselves up there, make sure they don't get into any major mistakes, and try and make sure they don't leave the bottom too open for someone to dive underneath, because as we've seen, drivers will try and take advantage. He's got a fast car in man, though, that will be starting the row behind him on this restart.
That'll be interesting. And the lights, I think, should go off this time. We see a little bit of double filing up there, and they do go off. So we're going to double file up and get this thing started one more time. As the famous Nick Robbins would say, we're going to light the candles and get this party started again. We'll see. Lap 32. We're going to start lap 33 with the green. Going to be 68 laps to go. Again, fuel windows going to be coming up very soon.
Yeah, still need to go to at least 60 laps at the most on the fuel tank, preferably 58 laps. So at least 10 laps until we get to that window. If we get an air caution or two, I think we see everybody come down and top off for fuel, and then it could get more crazy. Crazier than it's already gotten. One thing to note, though, too, there has been some strategy calls in some of the drivers at the back end of the field where they haven't used their fast repairs. They might be trying to hold on to them, like at Daytona, in case there's a continuous cautions rotation.
Yeah, at the rate we're going right now with the cautions, breeding cautions, I think if I can, I'm going to hang on to that fast repair, have that lifeline for later on in this race. As you see him coming out of turn number 4, pace car will be diving off this time, as there he is diving off the track, and we are going to take the green. Another slower start, but there we go. Dan West Jr. on that loud pedal, and he gets a decent jump. I won't say it's great, but a decent jump.
I'll say it's pretty great because it's already up to 3-4 car lengths. The problem is he's going to be quickly reeled in potentially here by Maines in at least a lap or two because of the effect of the draft. But already some drivers getting tight. Scott Mann taking advantage, trying to go for 2 different positions at once.
Scott Mann on the move, as he's already used his fast repair, so he wants to now get to the front and avoid all of the mayhem and chaos that's been happening at the back of this field, as he's to the inside of Stephen O'Hare in the 41. Hasn't completed the pass yet, but now he will, and he looks to slide up and take that position officially. It may not be long before we see that 90 of Scott Mann up battling for the lead.
Oh, more trouble. Masters just got spun around.
And that 03 machine all by himself off the racing surface, so I don't see a caution coming out for it. But looks like it's going to be ill handling a lot of damage to the left side of that machine.
Yeah, he is definitely going to be down on a lot of horsepower, and the reason Masters lost control was he tried to ride the middle line, lost the back end, and just skated all the way down the racetrack, all across Seth Frazier's nose. And really, in those types of situations, the thought process, if you're someone like Frazier, is, what are you doing? Please hold on to your race car.
Yeah, definitely well said there. As we go back to the front, still, Dan West Jr. still has that about 3 to 4 car length lead, as these guys haven't quite reeled him in. I kind of figured they would have by now, at least a little bit, but they haven't quite done it. And once again, surprise to both of us, they're going to go single file, at least for the first, I would say, 15, maybe even 20 cars. So single file really shocking to me this early in the race.
Yeah, especially in open competition for those that were part of that action on the iRacing service. It was a commonplace to be side by side for 15-20 laps. It was the sort of same situation in a lot of the fixed competition from what was seen as well. It just seems right now these drivers have realized may as well not fight too hard and burn up the tires, may as well ride in the single file line and risk the aero push to be able to conserve the tires for the long run. One of the drivers I don't think who's been conserving though is Mann, because he is one of the fastest cars to the track and he is sending it extra hard on the entries going full throttle.
Yeah, looking at times, 29.859 for his last lap. Keep in mind your leader last lap, 29.958. So roughly about a tenth faster on that last lap. So definitely he is not holding back anything. He is on the move here tonight, trying to get to the front. And he's right now on the back bumper of William Fletcher. And I don't think there'll be too many more laps before he gets by him. And if he can continue to be a tenth faster, obviously he's going to get to that back bumper of the 55, but how much longer can he run that faster lap using up those tires? And if he does, will he have anything for the lead once he gets there?
Yeah, that's the main thing. You can basically split up the race in 35 laps into this point as Fletcher lets him go with man taking the shortcut down the apron, but basically he might not be thinking too, it's been a lot of yellow flags. You don't know if there's going to be a long run, so why not use up some of the tires because that's how the race trends have gone. He knows he has to pit for fuel anyway, so why not? It's just a matter now, the next car up, Bill Ross, going to take at least a couple laps to reel back in the 17's bumper.
Yeah, and that has been the trend of seeing here of cautions, of breeding cautions. So, I'm with you. Go ahead, get these positions. If you can get up there and get those positions, he has a good pit stall. He started, up front. He chose to get the EOL. So if he can work his way to the front, we get a caution, everybody comes down, he's set to stay up front because he started there to begin with. So I'm with you. I say he just goes all out, gain every position you can, see if a caution comes out. If not, we're going to be coming up here soon to the lap 50 mark. So we're on 42 right now. It's 3 to about 8 laps, and we're going to be coming down pit road anyway.
And more trouble in 1 and 2. It looks like a bit of a stack up involving some of the cars, all behind Bruce Lee Weaver and co.
See, no caution coming out for it, but definitely a stack up there. Now Bruce Lee Weaver kind of all by himself, but right behind him, they're definitely stacked up. And on a side note there, you saw the 46 go way down below that white line, which is perfectly acceptable. You mentioned that earlier. These guys have to go down there a little bit to avoid any chaos, but they're using that to cut this track just a little bit to gain some time as well.
I don't think it was intentionally there to gain time because it's not Auto Club. If you hit that apron or even clip it, it can send you up the racetrack. I think it was just a matter of not sure where the cars are going. I want to be able to have an escape route just in case there is a stack up in that sort of situation, but that is a massive amount of time, though, for all those cars in that picture, though. At least 3+ seconds to the next positions up the road, then another 3 seconds on top of that.
And that is a huge gap to make up. But again, we've seen cautions. I believe this is probably one of the longest green flag runs we've seen so far, or coming up to it anyway. So, maybe that trend is swinging back around to the green flag side. We'll just have to wait and see.
P2, though, starting to heat up, it looks like, though, because Ryan Main's under attack. Bill Ross Jr., he's trying to get that Procore machine to work on the bottom line, it looks like. Again, underneath that chrome machine with the Armor All logos. And the bottom hasn't been the best of lines so far to try and make passes. The outside line's been strong at defending. Ross Jr. is playing this very well, though, to be able to get that speed on corner entry to apex. I think he can get a little bit higher up, though, to be able to complete this pass. Maybe go and try and force Mains to be a little bit tighter on entry, have to go a little bit higher up to be able to secure the deal.
And that's going to be side by side still. He is pushing him up just a little bit, but he's also staying down on the bottom, too. Almost interesting here is, like you said, that bottom has not really been working. But now he's being able to hold his own down there. We're going to see a drag race for at least another lap or two, as those two still not content, not decided who is going to get that position. Meanwhile, anytime you drive side by side like this, that is allowing Dan West Jr. to pull away, as he now has almost a 2-second lead while these two drag race.
That's the main worry when it comes to battles such as this. This past time by, 3/10 lost. The previous time by, 2/10. So if you're any of these drivers or anyone behind them, you're saying somebody clear somebody, because West Jr.'s basically broken the toe. By the time they get to the pit stop window, if this goes green, West Jr. is basically gone.
Yeah, it's just like 5 o'clock traffic somewhere when you have someone in the slow lane, somebody in the fast lane. It impedes everybody behind them, and that's what it's doing right now for these guys behind them.
Yeah, the only hope right now is that West Jr. stays in clean air the whole run, and you end up working together as a drafting tandem, and it takes about 10 laps or so to get back up to them. Already they gained a 10th just by them going back single file. Here's the thing, though. West Jr., if he reaches lap traffic, that benefits him. The downside, he just passed that only lap traffic and near him the entire racetrack, the 166 of Cheney.
Yeah, and it looks like he let him by pretty easy. Didn't have to deal with him too much. And we'll see how the lap traffic deals with these second, third, and fourth place cars. Theoretically, they're going to let him by, but they don't necessarily have to. And it looks like he's going to take it down on the apron, so I don't think it's going to be much of an issue for anybody. That's good news if you're those guys trying to run down Ryan Mays. But we are on lap 50 right now. So we've had a couple of cautions in there. That may extend them coming down pit road. But I would expect to see them come down here really any time now.
Yeah, already some of the drivers who elected not to take fast repairs or already used them have elected to take service. Eric Cheney just taking service, for example. So pit stops have started for some drivers, but I'm not expecting a majority of the cars at least for another 15 laps. The main thing is, though, when you come down to pit might be the difference between winning and losing this race. If any of these cars in this main pack of drivers, mains on back, elect to go for a major undercut, and they get lucky enough that there's fighting from these drivers, there's a chance that even with fresher tires, they might be gone. So that is something these competitors have to think about for when they want to pit. You can also try and go for the long run and have the much fresher tires and have a major difference in lap time already. 4/10 fall off in about 10-15 laps around the circuit, for example. That's something you have to definitely take a factor in too.
Yeah, and you're looking at times, little increments you don't think so much. 2/10, 3/10, they do add up. Looking at the fast laps here, just for your race leader, 29.832. His last lap, 31.4. You get someone out there fresh tires, even if they're not running the 29s, if they're running 30, they're running 1.2 seconds faster, they're going to catch you quick.
Very quick indeed, so have to definitely factor that in. But Dan West Jr. has just been, have to say, the class of the field so far. He's looked comfortable in the drop of the green flag, been able to go full throttle, it seems, the entire run. He is, however, mind you, with the tire wear, having to lift off the throttle, many of these competitors are as well, to get the car to rotate to get to the bottom line. So these drivers do have to deal with that. It's not as simple as just flooring it around like Daytona, or in some cases an open setup race where you might be able to do that for 30-40 laps, if not the entire run in clean air. So they have that to deal with. It's just West Jr. has been able to outpace everyone so far all race.
And quickly, I want to point out here, last season we ran the Xfinity car, and Sean Brightsman, John Ottenbacher, who run in 12th and 13th, as well as Jeff Stabnow, classes of the field. They were always up front, and we've added about 20 to 25 new drivers, changed to the Cup car, and what was your front runners aren't your front runners here anymore. So this car, different to drive. It's still fixed setup, but they haven't got the hang of this yet. So it'll be interesting to see if some of our drivers from last season that were dominant can find what they need to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And drivers, and I know from what I've seen experience-wise for some of these competitors who are up towards the front, running these types of cars, it's not even close to the same type of driving style anymore between Xfinity and Cup car. The main reason is, again, you have the different horsepower, different levels of downforce, and in turn, different driving styles required. You need to be more aggressive in the Cup car. The Xfinity machines, especially in fixed races, you have the potential to burn the right rear. It's kind of been the opposite for these competitors today. So it's a massive learning curve to be able to learn how these drivers in cars go around the circuit. It's not as simple as jump in a race car, floor it, win the race by going full throttle 100 laps. It's not even close.
And you mentioned there, the 24 came down pit road. He used his fast repair here. on a lap of 58. So past the halfway point, only 43 laps to go. And, I mentioned a little earlier ago as we got cars starting to trickle in, they needed a green flag run to really click off laps as we were roughly at an hour. In about 15 minutes span, we've passed the halfway point, and if we continue at this rate, it's going to shorten the distance or the time we're here, doing this race and covering it dramatically from that first half.
Yeah, and that was to be expected because in iRacing competition a few weeks ago across the service, when drivers got to race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, if you went green flag to checker flag 100 laps, the race distance was only about 50 minutes. So these laps go by fast, even when you factor in pit stops. It's when you have the stop and start is where it lengthens the race distance. Time isn't a factor for the competitors, but the laps that you spend under caution definitely adjust how some of the strategies will go for this race.
It definitely does. 31 seconds a lap. Once we get on worn out tires, that's roughly 2 laps a minute, of course. Again, roughly, it just depends on newer tires versus older tires. But we'll see how they go. We got a decent little battle going on here between Stefan O'Hare, Carl Burke, and Seth Frazier. That is for 7th, 8th, and 9th here at the moment. As it looks like Seth Frazier, who was involved in an incident earlier, has rebounded, and he's trying to take 8th place away from Carl Burke right now.
That's even with some front nose damage from that contact we talked about a little bit before with Masters. So that's hurting the straight line speed. The thing is, there's the major difference of he's taking the corners a bit better, I think, compared to, say, the 41 and the 53, in that he's ramping it down the banking to be able to get a run off the corner and be able to get himself in a position for make passes such as underneath Carl Burke to take away the bottom line. So Frazier's doing a great job of setting himself up for some good runs off the corners and taking advantage of the momentum you need with this package to gain track position.
As he just gets by the 53, and I imagine it'll be a very short time before he gets by the 41 of Stefan O'Hare. As we'll check in with that one. We got Casey Tillman coming down, so a few more drivers have completed their stops here, but still very few drivers have. There's been maybe a handful, which is going to be surprising here in a little bit to see when they come down. It looks like we're going to have a bunch of drivers come down at one time.
And could make it a bit tricky. My preference for space is about a second and a half or so before you duck down, because any less, if you don't have proper communication, there's a chance you get run over on the pit entry. So it can get very tight as things are getting very tense on the track.
And I think right now, if you had to pick somebody who's going to have that advantage, if everybody does come down, is going to be that 55 of Dan West Jr. He's so far out right now with a 1.5, 1.7 second lead over second, 3 and 4 seconds over third and fourth. He has a good amount of time to get in there, get to his stall before everyone else even really gets to pit road. If I'm him, I'm sitting pretty right now. I'm happy that I have that lead and give me that little bit of advantage over everybody else.
I am too at this point, and he's getting reeled in a little bit, should note, by Bill Ross Jr. But the thing is, it's difficult to reel in a car in front, especially at even pace, when you don't have the draft to be able to help you. And that's that kind of situation that he's in at this point, with many of the other competitors having draft partners. Mains and Man, for example, even though they have that, they burned up their equipment.
And you definitely do not want to burn up your equipment. You want to try to get to the front, but, we said it over and over again. It's one thing to be able to get to the front, but then you can't pass anyone because you don't have the tires. In this case, they burned them up a little bit too early, and now we've stayed green flag racing, and they don't have the tires to actually catch the leader. So, it's kind of a catch-22 there, 50-50 shot. Do you use them up trying to get to the front, or do you conserve them? And there's really just a tough choice. In this case, they picked the wrong one.
Yeah, you said before you prefer to potentially go for those passes when you can. Here's the problem. If you burn up the tires, you don't get those tires back. And there's a saying, you lose the tires for one lap, you lose the car for the rest of the run. Mains in the wall.
Yeah, hard lick there. I'd say hard. It was not super hard, but it definitely was a lick to the outside wall, and that could be a product of those older tires not being able to handle the way the car did. That's another thing. If the tires start wearing off, you can't make the moves you did early on in the run.
Yeah, man, 2 dive to that bottom side we seen there, and it got tight. I think that was also a major factor where these cars are starting to struggle on that bottom line to be able to make those moves, and you need to be careful. Yeah, that in turn, I think, was a product of that.
And if we see side-by-side racing now, I think you mentioned it earlier, is we could see somebody potentially slide up, and that could bring out another caution if they get into somebody on that outside lane, as I believe it's Ryan Maines. It is. After a little scrape with the wall, he's not chancing it. He's coming down pit road here on lap number 70 with 30 to go.
I would too at that point. If you top the wall, my first thought is go down. Just get the fresh tires, put on fresh Goodyear Eagles. You've shot the tires, may as well put on some fresh boots. Yeah. Seems like the 46 is doing the same.
And I believe the 13 around Maines just used his fast repair as well. So more drivers coming down pit road. And we got one slowing down, Sean Brightsman, coming down, as well as the 42 of Rick Bozer. So we have 2 more drivers coming down, as well as I believe that's Chris White coming down. So this may be the beginning of our pit stops here.
Yep, and some of the drivers are stretched a little bit longer than I initially expected for this, but I think many of our drivers are probably thinking, too, what if there's the chance of a caution? Here's the thing, the difference in pace is massive right now between fresh tires and old tires. There's been many occasions where you have a faster car coming up underneath you on the inside that ends up getting hit because they don't see the car coming in their back mirror or not paying attention to their spotter. So there's a lot of gambles going on right here. So I think still the drivers who have stayed out, especially West Ross Jr. and Fletcher specifically, are probably going to come out in their similar positions depending on where they go on because they have such a massive gap to the rest of the pack.
Yeah, and you know, to carry on about that a little bit, a caution coming out. If a caution was to come out right now, from 14th on, our would be trapped a lap down as they have come down. So it looks like our leader, Dan West Jr., is giving up the lead. He's going to come down. That will give the lead to Bill Ross Jr., followed by William Fletcher. And those two, what was a decent battle for second, is now a battle for the lead, I believe. And I stand corrected. That is not William Fletcher up there with him.
No, that is the lap car that lost the ball. That is Corey Walters, who's had a very rough day after hitting the wall at one point. But if you're Bill Ross Jr., you come down this time, and he's doing exactly that.
Yeah, he almost has to come down. The leaders are coming down. He needs to come down. William Fletcher, however, not coming down. I would expect to see him on the next lap. Scott Mann not coming down either. So some of these guys I would expect to come down, as we have roughly your top 5 right now: Fletcher, Hutchinson, Mann, Frazier, and Burke, that have 50 to 51 laps on their tires. Those guys are going to be coming down here momentarily.
If you're some of those competitors, though, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of them stay all the way to the very end of the fuel tank, hoping and gambling for a caution flag, because many competitors by that point, they'll have to take tires, because if you stay out, you're a sitting duck, or take the wave around rather. Fletcher now into the pit lane, it looks like here. So the main thing is there was a massive amount of time gained because the difference in strategies a little bit. It's big, and West Jr. had a bubble.
That is not good for him. Have a little bubble there. Looks like he manages to get it back under control. I don't see too much of any damage, but again, you do not want to make a mistake, especially when he's set to regain the lead here shortly. That could have been detrimental to his race, and he had self-inflicted wounds that seemed to be the worst kind too.
Yeah, even with the bobble, though, he gained an extra second, and the caution is out.
And try to find who it's for.
46.
46. We'll take a look and see what happened. That is Sean Breitzman. Another disappointing run for him. Let's go back and take a look here and see what happened. Sean Breitzman, again, a really fierce competitor. He's always strong, but not having a good run here tonight.
I'd have to say it's the same case we've seen for the first caution flag. Tidwick fully expected, I think, Breitzman to go up towards the wall. It almost looked like Breitzman actually got a little bit loose heading towards the entrance of turn 1 and actually went a bit lower and in turn hooks the 72. Unfortunate because Tidwick was one of the drivers taking the gamble to try and hope for the caution. Instead, he's a part of it.
And that is, that is definitely not the way you wanted it to go. You come to Las Vegas, you're going to gamble. It's bound to happen. And, sometimes you win and sometimes the house gets you. And in this case, the house got him good.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, we talked about the difference, old tires and new tires. Thinking about it a little bit more here, I'm wondering again if the 46 was and Breitzman was thinking he was just going to let him go. I'm surprised Tidwick didn't do that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I see the 46 is still staying out. He is a lap down, so the pit should be closed. It's a tough call here if that engine's smoking. Do you go ahead and take the penalty and come down pit road if you have a fast repair, or do you run it out till the pits are open for you?
I think you come down when the pits are open at this point because it is whiter smoke. And now it's turning gray, so this is not now good. As long as you get to the pit lane, it's good for you. If you come down and risk penalties, you potentially lose a lot of track position either way. So it's a tough call, and the whole entire field's been flipped upside down because there's 5 cars on the lead lap, maybe 6.
This is going to get very, very interesting to determine who all gets wave around. We'll see who sticks out as ahead of the leader, which Scott Hutchinson is the leader. So Scott Hutchinson's still in turn 3, so there's about 10, 12 cars ahead of him. So several of them should get the wave around here. So we'll see how many officially stay on the lead lap, who's at the tail end and all that here momentarily. But like you said, just turn this race upside down on its head here for, about the last 19 laps when we take the green flag again.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of drivers trying to take the wave around here. But this has burned a lot of them. And I mean a lot of them. Because some of them who are going to have to take this wave around are going to be on 10, 12 lap old tires. They're going to have to hope for a quick yellow flag. For the drivers on a couple lap old tires, you can get away with it a little bit, but it's going to be still difficult though because drivers such as Hutchinson, we haven't talked much about him, drivers such as Frazier, we've seen absolutely great speed out of him. They're going to have some massive advantages here. And don't forget too, Dan West Jr. got the lucky dog, so he also got the chance to get fresh tires.
And looking at your top 3, we've been bringing it up a little bit here throughout the night. Your third place driver, Carl Burke, 24 spots gained since the start of the race. Seth Frazier, 10. But look at Scott Hutchinson, your race leader right now, 33 spots gained. That is basically the entire field that he has passed, whether it be under caution or racing, to get to the front.
And you have to roll the dice, right? You said it right, and this is the place you do it in Las Vegas. He rolled the dice and ends up winning jackpot. It's the matter, though, of does he get to keep the jackpot or does it end up turning the jackpot into an air gamble for Snake Eyes?
Yeah, when you come to Las Vegas and gamble like this, yeah, it really is. It's almost like playing blackjack. You hit me, and eventually you're winning and winning, and eventually if you keep gambling, sometimes you're going to bust. And let's hope that doesn't happen here for Scott Hutchinson. Out front leading this thing, 3 laps on this stint as he was just on pit road. Seth Frazier, though, he's not going to let him have it easy. Seth Frazier is going to get right there, and he's going to give him a run for his money.
Yeah, absolutely at this point. Interesting thing, I said Dan West Jr. had the opportunity to take tires. I don't think he took that opportunity, surprisingly. He could have came down and pit. He still gets to start behind all the lap cars because he's the lucky dog driver, but he didn't take the opportunity to get fresh full Goodyear Eagles.
This very well could be interesting, and looking here too, he wouldn't have gone too far back. He'd have gone to about 17th place. Excuse me, as the pace car is going to dive off this time. There are only 17 of the 32 drivers on track that are on the lead lap, and you can tell right there. Look at that single file line back there.
Yeah, good restart for Hutchinson, but you got to remember, West Jr. would have started in front of the wave around cars, so he might have made a bad decision by not realizing he couldn't pit, because now he's going to have equal tires for the most part to some of his competitors. Remember too, Ross Jr. is on 1 lap fresher tires.
Yeah, he is on 1 lap fresher, and there goes the pass for the lead. Seth Frazier going to make quick work of Scott Hutchinson and take it to the front. So from having an incident earlier to now leading this race, they're going to be 3 wide back here for about 3rd and 4th position as well.
This is not going to get pretty. There are drivers for position, drivers on different lap cycles. You got to be careful in this situation, as some of the drivers are losing on the apron. The 06 getting loose.
Ooh, yeah, he is spinning around. Caution not coming out thus far. That is the 06 of Joshua Bill. He saves it from inside wall, and he's passed. Everyone's passed him, so the caution will not come out for him. Bad break for him, but we're going to keep racing as we go back to the front of this field. And I say front, we got Scott Mann, Bill Ross Jr., and that is, I believe, Dan West Jr. there. And we got more cars making contact in front of them.
Yeah, and more cars going all the way down to the apron, but a fight going on for 3rd position. Looks like Chad Malik is looking to make some moves in his number 6 machine. And the caution's out.
Caution coming, and it looks like it's going to be for the 42 of Rick Bozer. Let's go back and we'll take a look here, as I don't see anybody else by him. So did he self-spin or did he have help? We're about to find out.
Based on the angles, it looked like a bit of brain fade. I'll say that, because he just straight up went straight up in the corner and doored Frank Harris. I don't know if he got too tight on entry or what there, but he straight up just came up and hit Frank Harris.
No other way to explain it as we watch it here. Just, short of the steering braking or something, just drove straight into it like there was a straight there, and didn't even turn going into the corner. And right into Frank Harris to bring out the caution one more time. This is going to make it even more interesting, as we're going to have roughly in the 10 to 12 laps to go when we take the green again. The question is, does anybody come down? And I say that they are coming down from about 7th place on.
I'm surprised that Dan West Jr. didn't take tires. He would have only lost a couple positions, and he's been very good in this field. Electing to keep the track position, so we'll have to see how that works out along with Scott Mann. And I'm not surprised we've seen the top 4 at least stay out, because only a couple laps on the tires, not a major deal. And based on what we've seen, if you have started in the front, there's a 99% chance you stay at the front.
Yeah, it definitely is. Seth Frazier, I think, is safe. And I mentioned this earlier today, or early in this race anyway, that if you're Seth Frazier, you don't come down. If you can make sure you get a decent start and don't spin the tires, don't do anything that can cause you to, hurt yourself, those guys with fresher tires are going to be all the way back in 10th position. So if we restart this with about 12 laps go, 11 laps go, somewhere in there, 10th position is going to have to get by 9 other cars to get to you. So, 4th place, I think, is somewhat safe too. but he's got a nice little pad there for those guys to have to catch him, and they're not going to have long to do it, and they're going to have to burn up their tires just a little bit to try to get there too.
The crazy thing is, he's done all this too, including that pass for the lead, with a crushed-in front nose. That is impressive to me, to be able to show that amount of pace, even with the aerodynamic damage on that 32 machine. So, I think he's going to be difficult to stop, but keep in mind again, West Jr.'s in that mix, too, in the top 5. Also have to get by some of the cars. Scott Mann is also there as well.
That's going to be a good battle, especially if you can get, Seth Frazier's up there. If Scott Mann can get up there, if Dan West Jr. can get up there, those are 3 fast drivers. They've been fast all night. I think we could have a 2, maybe 3-car battle for the lead. But again, that's the key, is getting up to the front. You got to get through these drivers first. Obviously, Dan West Jr. starting 5th and 6th for Scott Mann. They don't have as far to go, but they also have some of the oldest tires in this front group too.
Yeah, because remember, a lot of these competitors, absolutely on fresher tires here, and some others are only a few lap older tires for the wave around, but the heat cycles still matter. But here's the thing, that the amount of heat that are in those tires, some drivers, again, with this tire model, like to stay out in these situations, because we see what happens with cold tires, and we have a car in the grass.
And that is Josh Robinson, as he is tearing up that grass quite a bit in the 47 machine. Not sure what happened there, but going into the grass under caution, that's not very heard of.
Bill Ross Jr. just drove right in the back end of him, somehow came out with no damage. That is a weird one that says technical issue to me.
Yeah, I'm going to say technical. People get rear-ended during the race, that's one thing. But under caution, usually, I'm with you, maybe gas pedal didn't floored it or something, or, in this case, the brake didn't work. Something probably gone wrong there, but he's going to reclaim his position, and just in time, too, as we're double filing back up. And we're going to go racing, as I figured, about 12 laps to go. And a big chunk of this field still on the racetrack, approximately 31 of us. But, of course, only 18 of those on the lead lap.
Gonna be an absolutely difficult restart here. Should note, Robinson does have damage, so he did get the rear end crushed in from that contact.
We'll see how that affects him as we're taking the green flag this time. And green flag is out. Seth Frazier leading them to the flag stand. He gets a good jump, and he's going to need that there with these guys behind him trying to reel him in, with going to be coming about 10 laps to go here in 2 laps.
A great start, but they're already 3 wide for position.
And it quickly going 2 and 3 wide. Complete opposite of the first half of this race. We saw single file, not a whole lot of racing going on. Now they are out for blood. They're taking no prisoners, side by side, 3 wide, and they're still duking it out here. Back there, I believe that's around John Ottenbacher. These guys are taking no prisoners right now. They're trying to gain every position they can here in these last and laps. And someone's in the wall.
And there was nearly 2 different incidents at the top of the caution flag. Nearly wrecked for second. But now this changes a lot in the closing stages, because Dan West Jr. was coming in quick right before the yellow.
He was indeed. And Bill Ross Jr., one of our drivers that has been so fast up front, had a good car and gets involved in this one. Not sure quite what happened. We're going back to find out now and see exactly what did happen to him. But unfortunate for a fast driver.
Yeah, it looks like he just got loose on the middle line. We've seen this a couple different times on newer tires. We've seen this happen. Just try to arc it from the top and ends up losing it. He does the right thing in locking it down. The problem is, it's in the middle of the racetrack, and that ends up collecting an extra 3 cars.
Yeah, you definitely want to lock it up. Like you said, he did a great job. He did what he needed to do. But when you have, 15, 20 other cars coming in your direction, Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of room. There's not a lot of real estate on this surface. I mean, it looks like these cars, you could fit plenty of them, but, at 100 plus miles an hour, it's just, you don't have much room and you don't have time to react. And unfortunately, the '03, I believe, caught him of Daniel Masters as well.
Yeah, and Masters, that would be his second incident of the race, so already used his fast repair, so that's tough luck for the '03 machine and a couple of the others there. An absolutely bad break for a driver who, before that whole entire sequence, we coming to the one to go, was looking to potentially still be one of the favorites, even with the bad track position. Now, he's out of the equation here, to say the very least here, as this is going to be only a few laps shootout.
It's definitely going to be a good race to the end. And once we get lined up double file, I want to point out here, Seth Frazier going to be on inside pole if he elects to take that. And then look who's sitting back there going to be on that inside of row 2. That is going to be Dan West Jr. So I think he'll make quick work of Chad Malik there in that 6. He's been fast enough. I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue. The question is Scott Mann going to be able to get up there as well? And Scott Hutchinson's had a fast car as well, and he's going to be sitting in the 4th position outside row 2.
Thing is, though, it just looks like, compared to West Jr. and Hutchinson at least, West Jr. just drove by him 10 miles an hour quicker off the corner exit like he was flooring it. It seemed like Hutchinson might have been going 3/4 throttle and wasn't quite comfortable with how the car felt on the short run and completely just let him go. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Mann try and do the same thing. And I wouldn't be surprised to see West blister his way up. The thing's going to be, though, can Frazier defend this race lead for only a few laps?
Yeah, that is going to be key here. It looks like it's going to be, about 5 laps to go before, or when we take the green. This, of course, will not be a green-white checkered attempt. However, if a caution was to come out after we take the green, that would send us into overtime. And again, that's going to play a little bit of a factor into it. It seems like when we go into overtime, people get a little bit more antsy to try and get position. So overtime, a possibility, but not guaranteed here. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, some of these competitors, I think, are probably thinking, I don't want to see overtime. I want to be able to finish and get some good points. But again, if you open up the door and someone gets the opportunity to get a run, especially on the bottom side off this restart, I wouldn't be surprised if someone tries to send it. The problem is, again, as we've seen many times, cars have been getting loose up at the top on quarter tires. Others have been pushing up into others on the quarter exits. This is going to be tough.
It is definitely going to be tough. And we'll see I don't see anybody that's come down pit road this time, so everybody's staying out. We did have way back in the field on the lead lap, the last 2 cars on the lead lap, Nick Bellamy and Ricky Bozer. Those 2 did come down in 17th and 18th to take tires and fuel. But interesting, those are the only 2. Nobody else did come down. So we got a range here from 8 laps from about, I would say, that is a 10th position down. 8 laps. Everyone above them, 16 to 22 laps on their tires. So, it's kind of like a mixed bag of nuts right now as to what's up front. You never know what you have up there. Older tires, newer tires, really older tires. It's just all mixed up right now.
Yeah, some intriguing strategies. With this one to go, though, here, you mentioned the lane choice. Seth Frazier, for the first time today, is elected to take the outside line.
Well, he had that option. I wondered if he would take it. He does. This is where it's going to get interesting. If, I think he made a good call here, because if he had taken the inside lane, I think that would have allowed the 55 to quickly get by the 6 on the inside and be right on his back bumper. Now the 55 Dan West Jr. is going to be stuck behind Chad Malik here for a little bit, have to get by him on the inside. So I think he made a good call. We'll have to just wait and see.
And that's exactly why he made that choice right there. Quickly got on the gas and quickly got clear. So it didn't matter that he was on the top side. Now, West Jr. has to deal with that 6 as you mentioned, and he might be a tough cookie to try and pass because that 6 did show speed in practice in preparation for tonight. Top 10 car in that session.
And even though these laps were under caution, I don't think it's going to be too much of a factor. But 16 laps for Chad Mellick, 21 for Dan West Jr. But Dan West Jr. not having any of that. He's going to take it below the apron. He's going to go to the inside, and he's going to try to make that pass quickly, but the caution's out.
Yeah, because Casey Tillman got turned at the back end of the field, was in 30th position last time by. And he definitely got some help because someone elected to try and make a pass on the apron.
And we also had the 47 around too, so that may have been the other car involved in that. As we take a quick look here on the replay cam to see what happened. And again, this will send us into overtime here tonight.
I think the 47 incident was something completely different, but as you see, Cheney just ends up, looks like he almost got loose on the entry, goes on the apron, clips it, and just unfortunately collects Tillman. That was a pass for position in that sequence. But what happened with that 47 was completely different for Robinson because he got loose on the exit of turn 4, or all the way in the entry of turn 3, rather, all the way to 4 because he tried the middle line. It just took him that long for the car to overcorrect up the track.
And the good news for the 47, I believe if the scoring is the way I think it is, the 47 of Josh Robinson will not be scored with the caution. The caution was already out prior to him going around, so that is good news for him. That, you know, he's looks like he's scored 16th, so looks like he's going to maintain his position where he was. You know, you still never want to go around because now those tires are possibly a little scuffed up and flat spotted, and you're going to have to come down and possibly get new tires.
Yeah, those tires are absolutely shot at this point, and with how much heat there is, I would come down absolutely, and he's lucky the nose doesn't have more damage from the bump in front of the wall. You'd only lose the one position, maybe two, that's the main, only couple positions rather in this entire sequence, so. But this helps Seth, have to say, this caution flag, it helps Seth Frazier, because now I think he might have this race in a very strong position to come away with the checkered flag.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if I'm Seth Frazier, I'm thinking back and I saw how well that restart worked before. I think we'll both agree here. I think he needs to take that outside lane again. It worked really good for his favor. Right as that caution was coming out, it took several laps. He was able to get by, or was getting by the 6, the 55 was. So it took him, 2 or 3 laps to get to that point of passing him. We're only going to have 2 laps when we get the green. So if I'm the 32, I'm taking that outside lane again.
I am too at this point, especially if you get that kind of jump again. Because I don't think there's going to be enough time for West Jr. to get to him, even with how good he has been, especially after a couple laps on a run. Because of that 6 machine, he'll need... For West Jr. to even have a chance, I think, he needs to be able to somehow get to the inside of the entry of turn 3, make the pass there, then by the entrance of turn 3 for the last time by, make the move on Frazier. West Jr. now only has one realistic chance left.
Yeah, and it's going to be a green-white checkered, and here for, I believe they get 2 attempts. So, we can't say this is done yet. They do have 2 attempts to do this. This is attempt number 1 to get it done. We'll see. We aren't even going to have to figure out how many laps will be to go when we get the green. We know it's going to be a green and then a white and then the checkered. However, if the caution comes out before the leader takes the white flag, we will start again and try it for another green-white checkered. At the rate we've gone and seen, I'm going to say about 50% will finish this with 1 green-white checkered.
Well, those are the odds, right? Well, you have the chance of using one of them or the other one. Flip a coin. It's going to again come down to how aggressive are the drivers in the back of the field, especially, because that's, again, where a majority of the cautions have been. If you're Frazier, You're hoping you at least get to the white flag, make the race official.
Yeah, that's what you want to do is get to that white flag. At that point, the yellow cannot end the race and run it out if you have to. We'll see the lights are off on the pace car, and the field looks a little less lustrous, whatever the word is, big. So we'll go with the simple word for it. There's still a lot of cars out on the track, but we have a lot of cars that have packed it up here, and a few cars that are still sitting on pit road as well. So unfortunate for them, but we're ready to tighten them belts down and go racing here for the final few laps of this race, unless we have another caution.
Should be an entertaining finish to this event.
It definitely will be as a slow crawl to the start-finish line. Pace car dives off, and we are set one more time as they are already on the loud pedal, and a good start for the 33 of Seth Frazier, and he dives down to the bottom. And this time, look how quickly that 55 is making quick work of that 6.
Much better start this time for West Jr. We almost had a caution flag, mind you, because Bellamy hit the back of O'Hare. But trouble for Frazier because West Jr. is there.
Yes, he is right on his back bumper. He dives it to the inside. Couldn't complete the pass.
Oh.
West, whoa, what a save. And caution is out. We are going double green-white checker here tonight. And West Jr. saves it with the 47 going for a flip.
He definitely didn't expect that block from Frazier, but in this type of a race situation, you need to expect that. He definitely slammed on the brakes, it almost looked like West Jr., and everybody else wasn't expecting that, and just rear-ended each other and stacked up behind him.
The typical chain reaction here as we go back to watch it. We're going to take it to the eye in the sky here and watch this one right there. There's the checkup, and they just stack up behind him. Dan West Jr. is not going to get credited with the caution, so he will get his spot back, but damage, we'll have to just kind of wait and see how that damage plays out for him in the end. But again, we've seen Seth Frazier with that front end damage, and it really hasn't affected him too much. So how bad do you think that back end damage is going to affect that 55?
We have to wait and see on the green flag because it's hard to tell in terms of speed, but he's going to be down miles an hour. We know that, down the straight line. Scott Mann's now got the best chance in this race. He's got the cleanest car inside the top 3 at this moment. And because of the timing of the caution flag, has the second position. So all of a sudden, Mann, who started back of the field despite winning the pole with the end of longest line penalty, might have a chance to finish where he may have potentially started.
Yeah, and you know, this is really going to be interesting here because when you're Seth Frazier, you started on that outside lane, you probably weren't too scared of that 6 car. He hadn't been up front most of the day, and you didn't really see him as possibly as big as a threat as you do Scott Mann. Scott Mann is quick, and Seth Frazier races with him a lot. He knows he's quick. So now which lane do you pick, inside or outside?
Not really sure at this point. I think maybe try the outside again because you're able to get back to the bottom side and at least covers off West Jr. But I'm curious to see what Mann can do now. Mann's been good on the short run, not as good in the long run, but that's not important now. It's what you can do in just 2 laps. And remember, if we get a caution flag before they get the white flag, race is official. There's a chance we don't even make it to the white flag with what we've seen tonight.
Yeah, there is that chance. We'll just, again, that's one of those things that we have to wait and see how it's going to end. But, you know, if it had to end here, I think we have 3 very fast drivers. You know, Seth Frazier going to be quick as I'll pull up some information here. 11 spots for him, so he started fairly good anyway. Scott Mann, it's showing -1 spot since the start of the race. Of course, that is because he qualified on pole, like you just said. Elected to take the EOL, so really that -1 is really a +36 as he worked his way back through this field. Dan West Jr. started third, so he's right where he was. So we have three really fast drivers that are coming here to the end. I would fully expect to see one really, really close finish if these three can get together here.
Yeah, and especially the telling sign was that last restart, too. It was looking like there was a chance they might have gone side by side coming to the white flag. But again, you have to be able to time up the entry right. Expect Frazier to try and cut off that bottom line to hold on to this lead.
It's going to be interesting, and I believe the light should go off this time as well, as they're showing a little bit of sign of double filing up, and we'll find out right there. The lights are going off, so we're going to attempt this thing one more time. Like you said just now, one of two things is going to end this race. It's either going to be the white flag or the yellow flag. Either way, after one of those, we'll see the checkered, and this field will be locked down as Seth Frazier out front here, trying to hold off two very fast drivers.
Absolutely, and you still have Hutchinson up there, and don't forget about Fletcher. He showed good speed on short runs as well inside this top five. Ryan Maines, he wants to at least get himself back in the top five. This is going to be hectic. I'm going to say that. It's going to get hectic here.
It is definitely craziness is all you can say here with tonight. Green, white, checkered number 2. Keep in mind the distance was 100 laps. We're at 106. So far, so 6 laps past the scheduled distance. As the lights are off, they're in turn number 4, I do believe. If I'm saying correct, yes, it is turn number 4. Pace car will dive off here as they hit the Old Spice sign. And we are going to try it one more time. And this is the final time here for the night as the green flag is out and Seth Frazier gets a good jump. But here comes Scott Mann and Dan West Jr.
Has effected a good jump, but here's the thing. Remember, the front nose damage is on that 32, and the draft is a major factor. Frazier needs to block and hope that he gets some luck here.
And somebody down on the apron won't bring out a caution. Here comes Scott Mann. He's going to try to make something happen as we're coming to get the one to go. White flag should be in the air. We got cars spinning. Caution is out, and I believe it's going to be Seth Frazier picking up the win.
Yes, indeed. Just meters away from the white flag. If you're Scott Mann, you're saying, darn it, why couldn't you hold on for an extra 3 seconds?
Yeah, he was right there ready to make it happen. And looking at the distance here, showing .090, the same number as Scott Mann's car number.
Yeah, and all of that caution flag moment started, though, at William Fletcher, though, it looked like, Charles, because that was where it was getting crazy, 3 wide. And when you have crazy, there's the chance of contact, and it looked like Fletcher had a hard cut to the left, trying to keep it off the car up top, collects everyone instead.
Yeah, definitely disappointing. The race had to end under caution, but it still was a great race there towards the end. And I can guarantee you, if I'm Scott Mann, I'm definitely a little disappointed right now.
Absolutely, not the way you want a race to end, to say the very least. And an interesting one, and Frazier's got to remember, have to be careful with the pace car before you make those burnouts.
Yeah, you definitely do, as he is running around the track. We'll let him do his celebrating here, as we'll go ahead and run through your finishing results. You want to run through those top 20, and then we'll bring us home, and we'll jump over to the post-race show.
Okay, yes indeed. Seth Frazier came away with the checkered flag. Started in 12, comes home with the victory. Scott Mann comes home second. Had a good shot at taking the checkered flag if it stayed green an extra couple seconds or so. Dan West Jr. finished in third. Hutchinson comes across the stripe in fourth. Chris White comes home with the top 5. Carl Burke comes home 6th. Jeff Stabnow in 7th. O'Hare in 8th. Paulison in 9th. Garber rounds out the top 10. Bruce Lee Weaver comes home 11th. Ted Rick recovers to a 12th place finish. William Fletcher finishes 13th after the wreck. Ryan Maines finishes 14th. He was the car on the outside of the 28. Well, Bellamy, he dropped like a rock after he ran over the back of somebody at the start of one of the GWCs. 15th was where he runs. John Ottenbacher doesn't even make it to the stripe because the flip upside down in 16th. Corey Walters, one lap down 17th. Gary Nichols in 18th. Bill Ross Jr. in 19th. Brett Johnson runs out the top 20.
And just outside the top 20 is going to be 21st place of Joshua Bill. 22nd, Justin McClure. 23rd, Rick Bozer. 24th, Chad Malik. 25th will go to Josh Robinson. 26th, Frank Harris. 27th will be Brad Carpenter. 28th, Sean Brightman. A disappointing finish for him here tonight. 28th will be Eric Cheney. 29th, Eric Cheney. 30th will be BJ Tidrick. 31st will be Casey Tillman. 32nd, Daniel Masters. 33rd, Roy Grande. 34th, Dan Stuzzi. 35th, Dana Rogers. And your no-shows here for tonight's race are going to be in 36th and 37th. That is going to be Stephen Bartlett and Ray Fournier. Fortunately, a few drivers not having the night they wanted. So we are going to step away for just a moment. We're going to get your top three here in the booth, and we will be right back here with your post-race show. All right, we're back here with your post-race show. Of course, this is brought to you by Clan War Servers, your official communication partner here for LSR TV. And we have your top three, or at least two of the top three drivers here with us in the booth to take a chat with them. And I believe Justin has caught up with our third place driver, the 55 of Dan West Jr.
Yes, indeed. Dan West Jr. was one of the fastest cars in the field much of the race. Just couldn't get the luck to take home the checkered flag. Dan, first off, how does it feel to come away with the top three tonight after such a crazy event?
It feels great. I mean, we had a nice competitive car. I guess I just pitted at the wrong time. I felt like we had I don't know, it looked like about a 2/10 lead there. And when we come out there, obviously we got trapped a lap down, and fortunately got the lucky dog.
Indeed, and I'm curious about this, though, as well. We've seen some big differences in pace for some of the competitors tonight. You were the fastest amongst the long run, it seemed. How much preparation did you put in a race like this to be able to have that pace with this setup? Because it looked like you were the most comfortable out of everyone, and on the long run especially, to get around the racetrack.
Well, I just took advantage of the practices that we had and just tried to take care of that right front, just arcing the corners the best I could. And I found that even though the guys were, right there with me about the first 10, 15 laps, I felt like that I was just kind of pedaling the car a little bit, not holding it wide open like they were, and just saved the right front.
Talk us through your perspective of the final stages of this race, especially the GWCs, because at one point you did have to, it looked like, actually tap the brakes going into turn 3 in the first GWC.
Yeah, I mean, it was just good racing. I mean, there was some fast cars up there. I got a good start. I got up through the gears and got a good run through 1 and 2, and had a good run on Seth. And I really wasn't there. I tried to show like maybe I was there and hoping that he was open the door, but that was all my fault. I shouldn't have even have tried to get in there, and I felt like I screwed up the 6 car Malik. Chad, he had a good run going. So when I checked up, he hit the back of me, and I kind of messed up some guys there, and I apologize for that.
Overall, though, a solid finish for tonight. Your thoughts on the early portion of this season?
I guess what I'd like to see, my thoughts, just like to see some drivers be a little more patient. I think that there's a lot of good racers in this field, and it's really nice to see the car count. But I'm not real proud that we're putting on all these cautions for you guys. So I think you got veteran racers like Seth up there and I and Jeff, and it's just we want to put on a good show for you guys. And when we're sitting there running around with caution laps, that's not much fun for you or us. So that's when you prepare and practice, I think you spend a lot of time trying to make the car run for a green flag run, and that's what I prepare for. And so when these cautions come out, it's not any fun.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone you want to thank, though, for being a part of your top 3 finish tonight?
First of all, congrats to Seth. Second, Northwest Racing Series is awesome. I know there's some people that are frustrated right now, but these guys really care. Behind the scenes, they work really hard to make everybody happy. And at the end of the day, there's rules and policies, and that's what you have to go by. And uh, Cody, LSR TV, appreciate all you guys there. Justin, thanks for coming out, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the time, Dan. Congratulations on the top 3 finish.
Thank you.
That's Dan West Jr. coming home third. He started there, was a strong competitor all night. And I believe, Charles, you're standing by with a very happy Seth Frazier.
They are the 32 Seth Frazier putting it in victory lane early in the season. So first and foremost, congrats on the win here on race number 2. Does it get that monkey off your back here, knowing that the rest of the season you just have to make 15 races now and you'll be golden for the playoffs later on?
Well, it definitely opens the door for some different strategies going forward. We can roll the dice a little more with short pitting or what have you, and try some different stuff going forward.
Uh, it was a wild ride there. Again, give us your thoughts on the first half of this race. We saw a lot of single car racing. It was more of like a freight train going by. Then come the later half of this race, everyone started getting 2 and 3 wide. So, what were those early laps like? And then compared to the last lap here, where you had a little bit of front end damage, but you were able to hold off this field after 2 green-white checkers.
Well, early in the race, I got involved with the accident with the 28, and I hate bringing out cautions. I really try not to do that. I'd rather keep it green and keep racing. It's hard to predict what some drivers do from lap to lap when they're not consistent. It makes it hard to race around them, but that's just racing. And then if the racing went green, the racing was definitely a lot better. The long run, the tires with this tire model, it's so weird in the current aero package. If it's a short run for the first 10 or 15 laps, everyone's just on top of each other, and it gets really hectic. And the racing, we're going to have to figure something out because it makes it really tough to keep the racing green. If you can get past that, the car gets a little harder to drive, and the tougher the car is to drive, the more people have to focus on the car and not each other. And I think that really benefits the racing. And the green and white checkers, it wasn't very fun being out front. It takes about 2 laps for this car to really get up to speed and get the momentum built. And when you're up front and you're pushing all the air for everybody else, it makes it about impossible to get away from each other. And then I felt really shitty about the deal with Dan. I looked in the mirror going to the corner, and I thought he was going to be right on my bumper, and I tried to do a late arc to really get a good exit. And it really surprised me how fast he got there, and I wasn't really trying to throw blocks as much as it kind of worked out that way. So definitely owe one to Dan going forward. I'll keep that in mind.
Well, overall, other than a few little incidents, there was a great race for you. You get the win. Again, any particular way you're going to celebrate this win?
I'm just, going forward, I'm going to roll the dice probably some with some strategy, and hopefully we'll get some good long runs later in the season, and that strategy really come to play, and hopefully have some more wins going forward.
Well, definitely a lot of room to play now, and we know you got some sponsors on the card. And you think so? Who would those be for that win here tonight?
Just my buddy Mike Wood back in Middlesex, North Carolina, for painting a bunch of cars for all of us, and he's working me on a scheme for this season. Should be out here soon. And Stab now and Brightsman and all these guys for putting all this show on, and you guys for broadcasting it.
All right. Well, again, congrats on the win here at Las Vegas. As a little bit of damage, he gambles, stays out, gets the win. Justin, any final words before we sign off here for tonight?
Well, first things first, apologies for the language from Seth Frazier in the celebration, but it was a interesting race to say the very least. The type of racing was not as what we potentially expected for tonight based on previous friends at this circuit. But that's the interesting things, because one of the things we didn't really get the chance to discuss a lot was it was one of the first mile and a half races for some of these competitors potentially with the new build that took place last week. So there was that to factor in. The pace picked up a little bit for some of the cars after those adjustments. In turn, a lot of strategy came into play for tonight's race, and Seth Frazier ended up being the benefactor of how the strategy played out tonight.
Definitely it did. In Las Vegas, the land of gambling, and some gamble paid off here tonight. Of course, on behalf of myself, Justin, and the crew that whole makes this possible, the drivers, everyone here at Northwest Racing Series, we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast, and we will see you at the next race Wednesday night, where some four-cylinder racing for the Mud Rebels Dirt League.